Hi, everyone. Welcome to One Degree Hotter's Student Stories segment, where we tell the real stories of today's students. There are so many ways to go about pursuing your education, but we often only hear the typical story. You graduate from high school, you move away to college, you get a job, and so on. That story has never been the only story, and it's becoming less and less common. That's why I share real student stories that you can learn from and be inspired by. That way, you are empowered with knowing that there are many ways of getting 1 degree hotter. Today, I'm so excited to have a former student of mine on the segment. Jose Hull is a current freshman at UC Berkeley, and he is studying physics, which is not easy. He loves sports and played baseball and water polo in high school. Jose's story inspired me because it shows that being your authentic self in college applications is worth it. Jose came to me nervous about his application essays because he had heard that you shouldn't write about sports. But sports were incredibly important to him. I won't give the ending away, but I'll just say that things turned out really great for Jose. So if you have ever felt that you shouldn't write about something that's important to you, you're going to want to stick around. Jose, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. Can't wait to hear your story and for everybody else to hear your story too. Let's start by having you just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Joseph Hull, go by Jose. And I'm currently a student at UC Berkeley studying physics. I'm a freshman. It's so far it's been an amazing experience. From when I started working with you, I was in a very difficult place with my college applications in general. Sports have been a huge part of my life. I've grown up playing baseball and I started playing water polo again in high school. And it took over my life. It was everything I did. It was practice, it was watching, it was going to games, it was a large part of my life. And so for me, just being such a large part of my life, it kind of impacted how I looked at college applications in general, and kind of it defined my life. And it still does. I'm still an avid I still play baseball. I watch all the time, and it's still a large important part of my life to me. And yeah, like I said, I'm at UC Berkeley right now. I'm meeting a ton of cool people, really smart and distinguished professors who have a lot to teach me, and I have a lot to learn. And I am just excited to continue on in this next stage of my life. And I'm eagerly waiting to see what happens next.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. Now, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your K through 12 education.
Yeah, I grew up, I started in kindergarten through third grade in a Catholic school, kind of a more private, very, very interesting. And after third grade, my parents tested me to go to a public school nearby, essentially. We would be zoned for that school anyway. And so I did my third grade at a public primary school, and then I was there until middle school. And at that school, it was very academic focused, and I'd say a lot more rigorous than other schools and people who I knew going to other schools in the district in the area. And that's kind of where I developed a passion for learning, honestly, discovering that I want to have a successful career and to keep learning and do cool things and meet cool people. And the way to utilize that and see that is through education and learning and progressing and becoming a better version of yourself. From there, I went to a public high school. Again, just the high school I was zoned for. So it was a very big school, almost 500 people per class. And a lot of classes got very, very competitive. I took AP classes as soon as I could. I started my sophomore year. We weren't allowed to my freshman year. So I started taking APs my sophomore year, and I took them all the way through until my senior year. And being in those classes, those with people who were very goal oriented, very intelligent, and people who, like me, saw college as a very amazing opportunity for our future and future endeavors and success later on in life. And so that's kind of what made me where I am and gave me my ambition to learn and to grow and to do that through education and to better myself and better my community.
So you probably, as you're saying that your school was competitive. You probably started hearing about college at a pretty young age. When did you learn about going to college, and what did you learn about going to college when you were young?
Yeah, so both of my parents attended university, so they also prided themselves in academics. And so from a young age, college was always a where, not an if. It was encouraged in my household for forever. And it didn't really start until high school for me that I saw a lot of people begin to kind of orient themselves towards college or bust mentality, where it's their measure of self worth and kind of how important they felt as a person was determinant on their grades and how they would fare in college. And
Mm.
so for me, that ended up being a large part of my fear in the whole process. I really valued a very academic and competitive environment because I felt like I got a lot better in those kinds of environments,
Yeah.
just as you do on the field or the pool, wherever it's having competition ends up making you better. It gives you drive, gives you ambition. And it was very encouraging, but intimidating. And
Yeah.
so college ended up going from a it's gonna happen, it's a sure thing, you just work hard and you'll get there, to a kind of a lofty idea of how to measure yourself as a person and as a scholar and as an academic. It was determinant on what college you got into, what major you got in for, and what you were going to do with it. And so high school was especially the turning point for me, where everyone started getting a lot more competitive in the college scene and kind of scared almost of what college they would go to or what college they wanted to go to, what college rejected them. And you hear that all the way through because you have friends who are seniors graduating and then as a freshman, and then you get sophomore year and the juniors start graduating, and then
Yeah.
the cycle just repeats over and over and over again, and you hear all these bad things, and it gets so scary.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely sounds intimidating. So it sounds like what you learned about college initially was it was this great thing that you could do to help you improve as a person and help you meet your goals, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, once you got to high school and your classmates were very competitive, it turned into college is a thing that determines your self-worth. Would you say that that's kind of right?
Yes, that's
Man, that's intense. Yeah. I have a lot more questions that popped up about that, but we'll get to them in a bit. There's probably still like a little point in your life where you made the decision to pursue college. So, what made you decide to pursue college?
yeah, my parents, my household was very encouraging, for one. It At first, it was just kinda reiterating at a very young age, like, give it 4 or 5, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go to school, get my degree, and get a
Yeah.
job, make and step on the moon," Uh, but as I got older, it became a goal for me because I grew up very close to Stanford University, which is very, very prestigious.
Yeah.
And I also grew up 2 minutes down the road from a local community college.
Mm,
So it's always been in my life, all these kinds of the scale of university or community college, like all of this higher education has always been a part of my life and has
yeah.
always been not a final goal, but encouraging. It's a way to open doors. It's a way to learn more about yourself and who you want to be. And it's kind of it was something that helped drive me. I saw all these college students, and my a lot of the adults in my life had gone to college or done a 4 year or transferred later on, and they only speak positively of it. And so that was my introduction and what made me want to pursue it.
Nice. Yeah, definitely having colleges around you can help. We're very lucky in California to have over 100 amazing community colleges and lots of public and private colleges and universities. And then in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, there's all kinds of colleges too. I want to ask you more about your high school's culture. You mentioned that it was very competitive. And in a bit, I'm going to ask you about what the college application journey was like for you. But I want to hear a little bit more about what you heard from your peers about going to college.
Yeah. So the high school I went to, again, very large. It also had a very diverse group of people, and people from all walks of life. So you had people who grew up in very wealthy, maybe upper middle, upper class, and you have people who grew up kind of lower middle. And there's a spectrum of people from all sorts of backgrounds, economic, cultural. At my school, there were a bunch of very unique and amazing individuals who you can communicate with all of them and learn something from everyone. In my case, a lot of the classes I had, like I said, I took a lot of AP classes. I took a large number. I think it was like 11 AP classes. It was a lot. So,
Oh my God, so many.
but in those classes, it was a lot of you'd see a lot of people who either had connections to colleges already
Mm-hmm.
or people who were encouraged by their families and it's instead of themselves to go to college and do this. And it was, you'd see a wide variety of people, just hands down. And in those classes, it was very, like I said, very competitive, and everyone had a different view. It was some people was college is an option, like kind of they had more choice in
Mm-hmm.
what they were gonna do, and they could still be successful. They knew they could be successful. And then you had some people who, like me, were ended up growing into this college or bust mentality, and grades being a huge thing. And it's frustrating sometimes to hear from that side of academics. And that was definitely a large part of the intimidation for me. However, you could go to other parts of campus and in other classes that I took outside of the APs, even in some APs too, you had people who were out here taking it for fun, doing classes on their own. And college was if it happens, it happens, or like I know I'll get in where I want to get in. So
Yeah.
you definitely have a spectrum of people, and it's important to get all sides and not just pigeonhole yourself into one perspective and one view. And I think going to a large high school was definitely helped me realize that. But it's really easy to fearmonger and tell people like, "Oh my God, you're not going to get in," and
Yeah.
going online is being a member of Gen Z, and social media is a huge part of our lives. You scroll on TikTok or Instagram and you see the baby boom happened for my case. And it was like, oh man, it's no one's gonna get accepted into all these schools. It was a whole thing. And I heard a rumor somewhere that some of these community colleges weren't gonna take people, and it was interesting. Very
Look
interesting.
that up.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you heard all types of different messages,
Yeah.
and sounds like some of them were a little bit more intimidating than others.
Yeah, all over the board, and you had those who were encouraging, but I think as a student with in my case, as a student with no guarantee of where I was gonna go, it
Hmm.
was a lot more intimidating. I would listen more to the, "Oh, no, like, let's
Mm,
get scared. Oh, what's gonna happen?" That kind of mentality, and it was easier for me to play into that. And
yeah.
it's an unfortunate part of competition, and and it's a people like to talk and people like to think, and it goes and goes. And yeah.
Yeah. And what were some of the messages that you heard on social media about applying to college, about going to college? What did you learn on TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah, my goodness, I could go on forever. I had It was interesting. It was very interesting. Like probably a lot of people my age, I spend maybe a little too much time on social media. And especially when I'm applying to all these colleges and eventually hearing back from them, it's just fear mongering, honestly, is all it is. It's You have these people with 4.0 unweighted GPA, and they did 8 sports and took 15 APs and got a 36 ACT, perfect scores all around. And it's like, oh my God, they got rejected. And, it definitely, it makes you question yourself. And regrettably, it um, made me think sometimes that I was inferior or inadequate in my education, and what I was doing. And I just really like my takeaway from it is I think it's so easy for people my age to get wrapped up in what they hear from others and what they see online because we're very impressionable at a younger age in high school during adolescence. It's it's really easy to fall into the trap of that fear mongering that oh my god you're not gonna do it, you're not good enough, like
Yeah.
it's all the negatives because at the end of the day the negatives get more clicks than the positive, so
Yep.
it's important to realize that.
There we go, y'all. You heard it from Joe. So I say it all the time, but now you heard it from someone who went through the experience just last year. Yeah, that's what I have seen on social media too. Like when I was starting 1 Degree Hotter, I did a quick search on YouTube how to apply to college, and I watched, I think, like honestly, less than a minute of the first video that popped up, and I started to like feel my chest get tight. I was getting a headache, and I'm done with school. I've been done with school and I got so stressed. I can't imagine what people who are currently applying to college may feel like watching those things. So I really don't like that stuff. And that's like the opposite of the vibe that I try to bring to this because there really does. I mean, you can do that if you want to. You can be stressed out if you want to, but I don't think we need to act that way in this process. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Don't believe everything you see on social media because it's just going to stress you out unnecessarily. Now, talk to us about what the actual college application process, what that period of time was like for you. Well, how did you feel? Like, were you super busy? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the summer when it was the summer after junior year, kinda when you really need to start locking in on apps, everything's due in November, October, November, whatever, and I was working a job during the summer and playing sports because again, it's a huge part of my life. I was playing baseball and, I had and water polo, I was playing water polo that summer. Basically, time is very limited. You have tournaments on the weekends and practice during the week, and it's really hard to find time to lock in and start writing and doing all these applications. I fell into the trap like most people where, oh, make sure you do it early. And I waited until like a month or two before. And so I fell into that trap. And that's honestly one of the biggest things. That's the most, when people ask me, what should I do for my college app? I'll be like, start now. With my sister, I keep encouraging her. She's about to enter this world, and I keep telling her, "Start, get going."
Yeah.
I don't want to stress her out or anything. I don't want to stress anybody out, but the earlier you start, the less stress you have.
Yeah. And I thought that you had started kind of early. I do remember us being done a good amount of time ahead of time, but it was during the school year. So you were pretty busy, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So for us and my applications, we worked on the UC apps, and I had baseball, water polo. Or during the fall, I didn't have baseball, but I had water polo during the fall, and I had school first semester of my senior year. So that was a lot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's time is very, very limited in that part of the application process. And yeah, we worked through it. Yeah, we so for what we worked on with my UC applications, I was actually those were the ones I was the most proud of because I did them on time and we had a decent did them in a fashionable time period and we had a lot of time to sit on them and review them and work on them and it those were some of my most confident and I put the most time into those.
Mm,
That being said, I still put a lot of time into my other applications because
yeah.
it's very important. Like I said, it was very important to me that I
Yeah.
get into a good school. I wish I gave myself more time. Yeah, just ground zero.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But yeah, very busy, hard to find time, and it's hard to motivate. And especially starting out is one of the hardest things. Like you said, you go on YouTube and look up how to apply to college, and it's you end up in this cycle of despair and oh my god, you need to have all of these, and your test scores need to be like this, and your grades need to look like this. You need to own 3 companies and
Yeah.
volunteer at 8 different centers and it's It's a lot. It's very intimidating when you start out, and it doesn't make you want to do it because I'm not there
You're
yet.
like, what's the point?
Yeah, and so it's definitely one of starting the applications and being like, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? Is certainly one of the hardest parts, and
Yeah.
finding time on top of that is again one of the other hardest things.
Yeah, definitely takes a lot of time. I always tell people it's going to take longer than you think. If you think you're going to finish this in a couple of weeks, you can, but you're not going to be happy. So, yeah, sorry to hear that it was still stressful, but I hope that, working together made it a little bit easier.
Of course, yeah. No, it's the way I see it, something like this where obviously it depends on the person, but if it's important to you, I stress that if you're stressed or you're feeling any sort of emotions or any way, it means that it's worth it to you, and it means that you care, and
Yeah.
it means that you're doing something that's important. And obviously, time management is can help decrease stress for sure. In my case, I would have liked to have decreased my stress with better time management.
Yeah, you wish you had more time, or like you wished you would have started it earlier so you wouldn't have been as stressed. And I think that happens to almost everybody.
Yeah, I think just deep down, I think that there are things you could change. If you're feeling emotional about it, I feel like that demonstrates that you care, and so it's worth putting the time into.
Yeah, I love that. If you are like nervous or anxious about this in a good healthy amount, it just means that it's important to you and you care. I love that. So I'd like to move on to ask you about, we just talked about the application season. Now I want to hear about decision season. You already submitted your applications and you started receiving the answers from the schools. Your peers were receiving the answers from the schools. What was college decision season like for you? And tell us a bit about what happened.
Yeah, so I did not apply to a lot of schools early action because a majority of my schools were public, and so a good amount of them did not have early action or what is it? A and early.
Early action and early decision. And one thing that I'll say is earlier you mentioned the UC application, that's University of California application. And then early action and early decision are earlier deadlines so that you can get an answer sooner.
Basically, I didn't do early action for any of my schools because I wanted to take more time because I needed more time.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was really hard at first seeing a lot of my peers and my friends and my teammates start to get interest from schools, or they hear from schools earlier. It's, oh, I got into this school. And some people got their dream schools on early action or
Oh,
early.
wow.
And I'm sitting here like I'm ecstatic for those who got it,
Right.
and I was very happy to celebrate for them and with them. But I'm like, where's mine? I want
Yeah. Yeah. You're
so
like that dog in the meme of like everything's fine and everything's on fire.
exactly. And so um it's kind of like holding your breath. It's when is this gonna happen? I want the release. I want to hear about it. And eventually, I heard from my first school, and I got in, and I was ecstatic. I was yay, awesome.
Right.
Um,
What was the
and
first school?
the first school I heard from was San Diego State University.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah. And then more started pouring in, and I saw more rejections.
Oh.
I saw a lot of rejection, and so I would start to get in my head, and I got into a couple other schools. I think I applied. Um, I'm not 100% sure off of memory, but I believe I applied to 11 or 12
That's a good
schools.
amount. That's like,
A lot of schools. It's
yeah, a lot.
very, very large amount of schools, and
Yeah.
I think I got in or was waitlisted for 5 or 6, I believe. So,
Of the University of California campuses, right?
uh, for the UCs, I got in to 2 or 3 of the University of California campuses.
Oh, okay.
I applied to a decent amount of Common App schools, and yeah. And the rejection was definitely one of the hardest things to deal with. It's,
Mm-hmm.
again, you're in that environment where grades and performances determines your self-worth and how
Mm-hmm.
good you are and how successful you can be. And it's intimidating. And you end up in, when you see that, uh, dear Joseph Hole, we have read over your application, and
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking at first, for
Yeah.
sure. And it was a little sad, but knowing that I put forth my best effort and I wrote my story and used my voice and talked about what I wanted to talk about, I had faith that I would see success somewhere and some school would want me. And if any of the schools I applied to didn't work out, I knew I had a way to get higher education.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about it. I knew that everything would be all right in the end. Obviously, you have ups and downs, but I just trusted in myself, and that was something that you emphasized to me and kind of taught
Mm-hmm.
me how to use my own voice and be confident in who I am and not read into all this. Oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's about being true to yourself. And what we talked about my coached for baseball, and we talked about that, and we talked about my role as a teammate. And for my essays, and those essays, those are some of my proudest work that I submitted for the whole college process. And
Mm-hmm.
those are the essays that I feel like most represent me and who I am. And knowing that I submitted that, I knew that the right path would find me, because I don't want to go to a school and be someone I'm not. I want to be who I am and open the doors for who I am.
Wiping off the tears now. Love it. Yes, that is exactly what we talked about. I know that those rejections never feel good. Even though you had some acceptances already, still it was like acceptances and then a series of rejections, right? And that just like, rejection after rejection after rejection just does not feel great. And then especially when you were seeing other people get their acceptances, I'm glad you were happy for them, but like, you get in your head, like it just doesn't feel great. So it can be a stressful experience. So I hear that that's how it went for you.
Mhm.
Now, though, let's move forward a little bit more. You got a little bit of an unexpected response from a college. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the for where I am now is kind of a crazy story. In the short of it, Berkeley was not on my list. UC Berkeley was not a school that I knew about a lot about, and I was
Originally, when you were applying.
yes, when I was applying, and when I worked with you, I was saying it wasn't really something I was honestly considering. I just
Mm,
kind of wanted to apply to all the UCs. I had a couple target schools,
hmm
but UC Berkeley ended up being one of the last schools to come out for me. Very off the radar for me. I was a lot more invested in some of the other schools I was more interested at the time. Interestingly enough, backing up, I first got into UC Santa Barbara, and so that was where I was like, okay, awesome, I'll study
Yeah, that's a great
there.
school.
Fantastic university. I was
Yeah.
super excited, and I was geared up, ready to go, and I was like, that's probably where I'm going to end up.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, Berkeley was one of the last ones to respond, and then I opened the letter. I'm expecting a rejection because it's a prestigious university, and so I was like, oh, like I could just skip over it. It's probably going to be a rejection. And then I was dumbfounded on my phone. I was like, oh my goodness, I got in. And so it was very exciting. And it I was like, oh no, what do I do now? I was all set to go to Santa Barbara. Like my friends, yeah, I'm gonna go live by the beach. And then I get this, and like I said, it wasn't on my radar at first. It wasn't a huge ambition or goal of mine to even think about Berkeley. The reason I even applied was because my parents were like, just click the box, just go,
Yeah.
cast your net, see what happens. And I was like, okay, like I'll do it then, sure. And lo and behold, here I am. Yeah, and so I got in. I'm doing physics there, and it is some of the most fun I've had, and I've only been here for what, 4 months. Yeah, it's crazy. People love when I tell them about it, and they get
Yeah.
very it's funny just how it wasn't on my radar. And like I said, I grew up very close to Stanford, so now
Yeah, you went to the rival school instead.
now we're rivals.
Yeah. Nice. Like you had this awesome surprise where you got into one of, the most prestigious schools in the country. But I
Absolutely.
think what's interesting about your story is, um, you were surrounded by all this competitiveness, and it kind of sounds like there were moments where you just kind of didn't believe that that was possible for you. Like a school like UC Berkeley, you feel like that was possible for you. So I'm glad you had like a little Delulu moment and you were like, yeah, screw it. I'm just going to apply and see what happens.
Me too. Me too. Very, very grateful for that. It's
All good.
yeah.
Nice. Wanted to ask you a question about what you now I feel like I'm bragging, but like what you learned working with me. But like you had like a little awakening moment.
Oh
When I
yeah.
started working with you, you were like super anxious, and the thing that stood out to me is you said, "I heard that I'm not supposed to write about sports in my essays because it's too common of a topic." So talk to us about that.
Yeah, that was one of the I think that was our first Zoom call. I think or the Google
Yeah.
Meet, whatever we were using. I think that was one of the first things we talked about where I said, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do, where to start because I like again, I see all these things online. Being an athlete and doing sports is such a overused narrative. It's something great the application readers see all the time. It's a very common thing. And I was like, okay, I can't do that then. It's such a big part of my life. I love it. I love to watch. I love to play. I love to coach. I love to do all this. It's a whole huge part of my life that was blocked off for me.
Yeah.
In our first couple of calls, you were like, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you're passionate about. Say what you love. Write
Mhm.
down all these things that are important to you. And in doing that, I was able to realize, I maybe it is a narrative that people see, but it's my narrative, and I was able to differentiate it, and it was important to me, and I was writing about what's important to me, and I feel like that really showed, and you helped me kind of realize that, and it's I'm very, very, very grateful for our work that we did and what you helped me see in this whole process. I tell people now it's be yourself. There's no there's no reason to like hide yourself and not talk about what you like. Like college is supposed to open so many doors for you and go out and see the world and learn more about what you're into. It was an awakening for me to see that as a white male playing sports, I could stand out still and talk about what I wanted to do when TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all these tutorials on how to get into college is like, no, you need to, yeah. It was, it's definitely, it's interesting for sure. And I was very, 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 very grateful for that opportunity to work with you and for you to teach me that.
Yeah, this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you, exactly why I wanted other people to hear your story, is because I imagine you're not the only student who feels this way of like, oh, I shouldn't talk about that because it's too cliche, or I shouldn't talk about that because it's too common. That makes no sense to me. I understand admissions readers read a lot of applications. I read a lot of applications when I did seasonal reading. And yes, there are some schools that are very competitive. All of that is true. And to me, so much of admissions is out of our control. It doesn't make sense, like you said, to hide an entire part of your life because I'm just going to say it because some like youngster on TikTok said you should,
Yeah.
right? And no shade to them, right? Like they're doing their best and they also did a great job. But there's a lot behind the curtain of admissions that a lot of people don't know about. Sometimes even admissions officers don't have control over who gets in. It's more about like what the school's goals are. And we talked about this when we were in our calls, right? You had to learn that colleges have priorities that we don't know about. They have to keep the lights on, they have a budget, maybe they want to go up in rankings, maybe they need to increase diversity. And so all of that is beyond even admissions officers' control. So when I hear things about like, oh, don't talk about sports, don't talk about XYZ, and that's literally like what your life has been, it makes no sense for me to hide it. So I'm really glad that you came around and you talked about what was important to you, that you felt proud of what you submitted more than anything. That's all you can control, right? Is like what you share and what you submit. So I'm really glad that you felt proud about that. And then the cherry on top is that after getting some great acceptances and after getting a lot of rejections, you got into one of the top colleges in the country. That's not the point here. It's not that this story is worth it because you got into UC Berkeley. It's not the only reason why we're talking about this, but it really is like an awesome cherry on top that you got into UC Berkeley being yourself when so many other people on the internet were telling you not to.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's you'll be rewarded based on not rewarded's the wrong word, but I like to see it as the right place will find you. And in my case exactly, it's for me I did get accepted to Berkeley and I did get in and I did see a lot of success at a lot of schools and I'm able to recognize that. And I think that it's important to be genuine and be yourself and not listen to what people have to say online and submit that application about your interests, about your passions, about who you are, because it's so easy to lose yourself in the competitiveness and the whole jungle of mystery that college is.
Yeah.
And so I just think, it's important to find the place for you. And the only way to do that is to be your true, genuine self and put that forward, no matter if it's cliche, like you said, no matter if it's what people online would be like, oh, it's basic, or oh my, it's too crazy, it's too weird. Like,
Hmm.
though that's what makes you you,
Yeah.
It's such a vital role of who we are as an individual. And if you don't communicate that, then you're just another person on a page. You're just another name on a page.
Yeah, exactly. People say like, "Oh, that's overused" or whatever, but sports is overused, and that's what you do all day. How are we not going to talk about it? It didn't make sense. So yeah, I love that. I'm so glad that you learned this, Joseph, that you felt like kind of liberated to be yourself in this process, and I hope that other people can feel that way too. So now we're on the other side of all of this. You've applied, you got your acceptances, and you're now at UC Berkeley. You're at Cal. So tell us about what your first semester at college has been like.
Yeah, so I just completed my first semester as a physics undergrad. So it's a lot. It's amazing. It is I feel like I found my place and I'm finding my people and it's still for me it's still a competitive environment, but like I said, I thrive in that kind of or I'm encouraged in that kind of environment.
Mm.
And it's something that's important to me to be challenged and to be um kind of have people I can be competitive with but still learn from, and that that work of that togetherness, that kind of we're all advancing, we all have similar goals, interests, passions. And at Berkeley, I really feel like everyone there is there to learn and to grow and to be better and to do something positive in the world. And that's something I am incredibly grateful for and to be a part of. It's amazing to have these connections to world class professors and to the alumni network I'm being like gradually introduced to is very, very diverse and people everywhere, and it's such a cool community to be a part of. And I feel like that extends to not just Berkeley, but my friends all over. I have friends at Boulder, Colorado Boulder. I have people going to Santa Barbara, or I know someone who's going to Illinois from California. And so it's you hear all these stories and um, all of their like of classes of people of professors. And what I've found is that a lot of people are doing what's passionate for them, what they're passionate about,
Mhm.
and exploring and finding a community to be a part of. And I feel like at any college and especially Berkeley for me, I'm able to find those communities. Like I'm on the Cal Club baseball team actually, which is super super fun. So I get to keep playing the sport that I love, and I get to be with a bunch of people who are really incredible people. They're super nice, generous, amazing, and I could go to them for help and in classes and advice, and some of the smartest dudes I know. It's really cool.
I'm so glad to hear you're having a great time. Right, Jost, to finish off, I like to ask everybody kind of the same questions. So I have two questions left for you. So, first, you kind of talked about this already, but what is one college myth that you busted for yourself in this experience?
Yeah, one myth I'd say, like we've been talking about, is this whole there's a genre, there's a kind of a script you need to follow. You can't do this, you can't do that, you have to show this or you have to do that. It's like a gonna reiterate the point I made earlier, just be yourself, put your best foot forward and do what you can. You'll find the place for you if you're yourself. No one's gonna like no one's gonna like it if you're behind a mask or trying to be somebody that you're not, and you won't be happy with that. It's being yourself and doing what you want to do and saying what you want to say is a huge part of this process. And you can't let someone on TikTok be like, "You don't own 3 businesses, so you can't apply to this school." Apply, like, put your best foot forward. If you have the means to do it and it's something that you're interested in or passionate about, I heavily encourage it. I it's bottom line, there's something for everyone, no matter what it is. And in the case of college, the right admin will find you at the right time.
I love that that's something that you busted for yourself, is you don't have to try to be like everybody else, or you don't have to try to be like what intimidating college admissions TikTok says you have to be. All right. So then the next question is, what advice would you give to people who feel like they need to hide a version of themselves for college applications?
I'd say if you feel like you need to hide a version of yourself, like I did, for those of you who may be watching and feel like I can't show who I am, I need to be somebody I'm not and do something that I don't currently do. Don't buy into everything you see, and there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, and you just need to trust yourself because you are your best compass in life and you are going to guide yourself in the right direction.
If you are in the thick of it, or gonna be in the thick of college applications, and you have heard all the TikTok nonsense about don't talk about this, don't talk about that, listen to Jose, because he is a great example of how being yourself really pays off. One, for how you just feel as a person, independent of decisions, but also super cool. You got into an awesome school and you did it by being yourself. You did it by being genuine. I think that's what really, to me, that's what stands out about you, is when I talked to you and when I read your essay, your responses, they felt genuine. We don't know if your responses are what got you in. We will never know that.
Yeah.
But we know that you were authentic to you. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do. So thanks, Jose. I appreciate you so much. It's been so wonderful to hear your story, to hear how, you're so happy at Berkeley, and how this like little awakening that we had together has like really paid off for you. I know that your story is going to inspire other people and help relieve a lot of the stress that they don't need to be feeling.
Well, thank you so much. I hope that somebody like me who's scrolling on YouTube or Instagram or somewhere looking for any bit of advice, anything that sounds remotely close to them, I hope that my heart goes out to you and good luck with everything. And I hope that you manage to be true to yourself.